Hey, welcome back. Today we're visiting a place you don't want to be. It's off the coast of Scotland. And it's a little rocky island, no buildings, no people, no permanent signs of life. To passing boats, it looks just insignificant, easily missed, easily forgotten. But during World War II, this island became one of the most dangerous places on Earth. Not because of the ships of war, not because of bombs, but because of what was released onto this island. In 1942, Britain feared something worse than invasion. Intelligence reports suggested Nazi Germany was exploring biological weapons, and Britain, desperate not to fall behind, began to prepare its own response. Scientists needed a testing ground, some were isolated, some were expendable. Gruinard fit perfectly. It was uninhabited, winds are predictable, and if something went wrong, nobody was there to witness it. Nobody likes witnesses. The decision to use Gruinard Island didn't come from generals or from politicians. It came from scientists. And almost all of them worked here. So Porton Down was established during the First World War, originally to study chemical weapons, chlorine and mustard gas, substances designed not to kill quickly, but to incapacitate. From the beginning, Porton Down existed in a moral gray zone. The purpose wasn't curiosity, it was preparation. By the time World War II began, Porton Down had already evolved into Britain's Center for Chemical and Biological Warfare Research. The scientists who worked there were not villains in lab coats. Many believed they were preventing something worse. If Germany used biological weapons first, Britain needed to understand them immediately. This belief shaped everything that would follow. Modern ethics boards, they didn't exist. Consent standards were super vague, oversight was minimal, and urgency always outweighed caution. So, these scientists weren't asking whether something should be done, they were asking how fast it can be done. And when the idea of outdoor biological testing emerged, Porton Down needed a place far from cities, but close enough that they could still control it. Gruinard was chosen not because it was unique, but because it was disposable. So the scientists had a location, they had a pathogen. What they needed next was a proof of concept. The pathogen they chose was Bacillus anthracis, otherwise known as anthrax. A bacterium capable of killing through inhalation and surviving in soil for decades. Scientists from Porton Down transported sheep to the island. Anthrax-filled bombs were detonated above them, and within days, every animal was dead. The experiment worked, but the success created a whole new problem. The island itself was now contaminated.
Part of their work was necessarily the development of practical weapons, which had finally to be tested with actual infectious agents. Sheep were used for the trials because they're particularly sensitive to inhaled anthrax. On the island, they were herded by a shepherd and his dog, keeping, of course, always to the uninfected, clean area, and driven into a corral until wanted. Here they were marked before being put in the exposure crates. The crate is necessary to hold the animal in the right place on the layout and to ensure that it faces the cloud. You can see here how they were covered with fabric to keep spores off the fleece. And later we'll be seeing how they were hooded after the trial to stop transfer of spores, and how they were tethered out of reach of one another. The bomb's fired, and the wind carries the cloud towards the line of animals and impingers. This is a static burst. Now the sheep were hooded to reduce risk of cross-infection. This and other precautions ensured that infections were from inhalation of the primary aerosols from the bomb. And slow moving to try catching them, particularly if he is wearing full protective clothing.
Gruinard Island was immediately quarantined. The public was told almost nothing. Maps marked down as forbidden. What was meant to be a temporary restriction became permanent. Years had passed, then decades. Anthrax spores embedded themselves into the soil, being resilient, invisible, and lethal as they are. By the 1980s, pressure began to mount, and activists calling themselves the Dark Harvest Commando removed contaminated soil and left it outside of government buildings. Their message was simple: you don't get to forget this. In response, Britain's government finally acted. Topsoil was removed, the island was soaked in diluted formaldehyde. Then sheep were reintroduced as living test subjects. This time around, none of them became ill, no side effects. So in 1990, Gruinard Island was officially declared safe. The official story ends here, but when a place is sealed and prohibited for nearly 50 years, the silence leaves a lot of room for other explanations, and Gruinard Island has collected its share. Some people believe that anthrax wasn't really the actual experiment, that according to the story, anthrax was simply the version that the public was allowed to know about. A cover for more advanced biological weapons tested in secret is what they believe. Supporters of this theory point to the secrecy, the involvement of Porton Down, and the long-term contamination that could have been cleaned long before it was. Some believe that the danger never ended, that anthrax spores can survive for decades, and Gruinard Island was deliberately contaminated. This is supported by the question, if it's safe, why does nobody live there? Now, the darker claim is a bit harder to dismiss emotionally, and that's the claim that Gruinard wasn't just used for animal testing, but that there were human tests and trials. And this is based on the logic that if they tested on animals, why not people? Especially during wartime. The final theory reframes the experiment island entirely. This theory states that Gruinard wasn't the target, that it was a prototype. A test to see whether land could be made uninhabitable for generations, and whether a civilian population could be destroyed without invasion. So what do we know? Well, here are the facts. Every declassified document related to Gruinard Island identifies just one organism, Bacillus anthracis, anthrax. Soil samples taken decades apart detected no other agents. Secrecy didn't hide a second experiment, it hid a morally and politically indefensible one. Gruinard Island went through the most aggressive decontamination efforts in British history. Soil removal, chemical treatment, biological testing using sheep. None were infected. The island is empty today because of its past, not because of its present conditions. There's no evidence of human testing, no transport manifests, no medical files, testimonies. Every confirmed test involved animals, no people. The claim of it being a prototype, not a target, actually contains a partial truth. Britain did develop a plan to use anthrax against Nazi Germany. This plan was called Operation Vegetarian. They were funny. This was not a battlefield weapon, it was the destruction of the battlefield itself. This was designed to target livestock, and scientists developed small linseed cakes, each contaminated with anthrax spores. The disturbing idea was simple: drop over German farmland, cattle eat the cakes and die, contaminating the food supply, resulting in famine paired with human infection. Was estimated that would kill in the millions. This was not about winning territory. It was about rendering a country uninhabitable for generations. Gruinard wasn't chosen randomly. It served a specific purpose to determine whether anthrax could contaminate land long term. Yes. Could spores survive weather? Also yes. Could soil remain dangerous months or years later? Again, yes. Could the environment itself become a weapon? Gruinard proved that it absolutely can. It demonstrated that anthrax can remain lethal for decades, and at this point, reality diverges a bit from conspiracy. So Operation Vegetarian was never actually deployed. The cattle cakes were manufactured, over 5 million of them, but they were never dropped. By the time Operation Vegetarian was ready, another operation was going on. Operation Overlord, the invasion of Normandy, which my grandfather was actually part of this as an infantry field medic. Operation Overlord, not Vegetarian. So not long after this, Germany surrendered to the plan, so the plan never actually got carried out. Gruinard was not a rehearsal for an inevitable attack. It was part of a concept and a warning. The island showed that biological weapons can't be controlled. Once released, they don't respect borders or nations, not timelines, nothing. The idea that Gruinard was a countdown to mass civilization destruction is understandable. The intention existed, the capability existed, but it was never deployed. Gruinard wasn't a countdown, it was a warning. Gruinard Island doesn't need myths to be disturbing. Its documented history is more than enough. Conspiracies exist because silence, well, it invites imagination, and when access is denied, people will fill the stories, fill the gap with stories. That's what they do. The danger wasn't what people believed happened, it was what almost did. This island isn't exactly a vacation destination, at least not one on my bucket list. I don't know if you'd want to go to Gruinard. Tell me down in the comments there. And don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, share. It helps. And I hope y'all enjoyed this journey. We'll see you in the next episode.